Hello, students. Let's now begin with a new chapter. The chapter is on circulation. Remember that we finished with respiration, and we said that respiration and circulation go hand in hand. So, circulation is not so important for an animal like amoeba. So, for a single-celled organisms like amoeba, neither respiration nor circulation will present a major problem. We said that it respires simply through diffusion, and since it is single cell, there is no issue of infrastructure, there is no issue of transport of these products. But so we will say that for single cell organisms, there is no need of a specific form of circulation or a system. But when the cells become many-celled, multiple cells and complex, then there is a need for specific circulatory systems. And so, what would be the components or the parts of a circulatory system? So naturally, any such system will consist of circulatory fluids, tubes, a system of tubes, a kind of plumbing, and propelling organ. So what are the circulatory fluids? There is water, there is coelomic fluid, there is hemolymph, lymph, and blood. In this different forms of tubes, they will include arteries, veins, arterioles, venules, and capillaries. And propelling organ is heart. The heart will contain chambers. Some of these chambers are highly muscular. Some of these chambers are not so muscular. So we have structures like both atria and ventricles, both of them together over here. So over here, as an introduction, the types of circulatory systems. So we see that sometimes circulatory systems are types of circulatory systems, open and closed, and then within closed you will get single and double. So open circulatory systems. Let's write that down over here and draw a diagram to explain what is the meaning of an open circulatory system and where do we find it. In organisms such as arthropods, that means several groups of insects and crustacea, etc., we find this open circulatory system, and in some mollusks we find this open circulatory system. So what does it mean? Is that there is a propelling organ or a heart. So this is a propelling organ or a heart, just drawn very simply. There can be one chamber sometimes, or there can be more than one chamber. So this is the heart. Then there might be a tube that takes it away, and therefore we call that either as aorta or we call that as an artery. So there is an aorta, might be over here we write this as an aorta, a distributing vessel. And this then leads to a lot of spaces over here. There might be a space in the rest of the body. This part is just used to say that in the rest of the body there are spaces. So blood is pumped by heart into spaces called sinuses. Sinus is also called as hemocoel. And in this hemocoel there is a regular tissues. All the body, all the different tissues and organs are there. That means the tissues and organs are bathed, they are just lying in this hemocoel. And this hemocoel or this sinus contains fluid called hemolymph. It contains this fluid called hemolymph. So tissue is bathed in fluid called hemolymph. So the blood from here enters the hemolymph and ultimately it goes back into the heart. Which means that there are no tubes and there is no system by which it is properly getting circulated in the hemolymph. But since animal is small sized, the system works. And also that when the animal moves or locomotes, then in that case movement of the hemolymph takes place. So the hemolymph is circulated. Now in some cases the hemolymph contains oxygen carrier pigments. Sometimes Sometimes it contains Hb or hemoglobin. In some animals, there is hemocyanin. In some animals, there is hemoerythrin. In some animals, there is chlorochlorine. So you can take this as an assignment to find out which animal has hemocyanin, which animal has hemoerythrin, and which animals have chlorochlorine, and which animals have hemoglobin. And in some animals there is no such pigment. So there is no pigment at all. So in this sort of system, this is the heart. The heart is pumping the blood and it is going to the different spaces where it will now, the force with which the blood is pumped over here, that force disappears here. That same pressure cannot be maintained in the hemocoel or the sinus. What is hemocoel or sinus? It's a space, and in that space different tissues and organs are present. Now that space is filled with a fluid that we call as hemolymph. You can also alternatively call it as blood. Only thing is, it is not typically without any cells. Normally we would associate the term blood with cells. So there is no cell over here. Now that was all about open circulatory system. Let's just see what we mean by a closed circulatory system. Now, in a closed circulatory system, it's found in annelids like earthworms. It's found in cephalopods, and it is found in vertebrates. We have a closed system. So in this closed system, it's simple to remember that blood is never in direct contact with tissues. Blood is never in contact directly with tissues. Whereas in the open circulatory system, we said that in this space over here, tissues and organs are present in this hemolymph, and the tissues and organs are all bathed in this. They are actually taking a bath in this hemolymph. That means it's in direct contact. Whereas in the closed system, the blood is never in direct contact with tissues. So the simple diagram for this will be we just assume that this is the heart. One chamber is the auricle and one chamber is the ventricle. This chamber is the auricle and this is, let's say, the ventricle. And this is pumping the blood. And it goes now to a capillary network. And in this capillary network, It's actually the gills. The gills or the lungs where it has got oxygenated. Gills for oxygenation, and it goes down, and again we represent one more set of such capillaries, and it again goes back into the heart. This capillary network represents all the different organs, and therefore we call it as systemic circulation. Here, since it is gills, we call it as branchial circulation, or it can be pulmonary circulation if there was lungs. So you have branchial or pulmonary. So we have a proper system whereby there are different kinds of tubes, either arteries and arterioles, veins and venules and capillaries throughout the body, so that nowhere is the blood in direct contact with the tissues. So from the heart it is pumped in through a blood vessel. Here the blood is deoxygenated. So we could show this by a thick pen. So this is deoxygenated blood. Now it gets oxygenated, and it is supplying the blood to the different parts of the body. When it supplies blood to the different parts of the body, once again it loses its oxygen, and it is now going back to the heart so that it gets pumped. So this is single circulation. Also, that it is explaining to us that it's a closed system. Okay, in this closed system, pressure of blood is maintained. Think of the contrast with the open circulatory system. There is no pressure, but there the animal is small in size. Here the animals could be larger, and therefore it's important to circulate the blood, otherwise the blood will not return back to the heart. But here pressure is maintained. But the only thing is that it is moving only in one direction into the heart. It's not going twice into the heart. So here we see that the heart is two-chambered. So this is serving as a diagram that is good for closed circulatory system, as well as the fact that it happens to be single circulation. Okay, so in this single circulation there is one aspect which we call as branchial region or pulmonary region, where it is going for getting oxygenated, and systemic circulation where it is going throughout the body. And the pressure of the heart is beating with a certain force that is sufficient to be maintained and returned it back. So these are the differences between open and closed circulatory systems. Single and double. Circulation. We already discussed with single circulation actually when we were discussing closed circulatory system. That means, let's just write it over here, single. For example, it's found in fish. So what do we mean over here? Blood flows into heart, and heart is two-chambered. Hence, it goes into auricle, and from auricle it goes to ventricle. The ventricle is powerful because it's muscular. It's got this myocardium, and therefore the pressure is high when the heart pumps its blood, and therefore ventricle is important over here. Heart, the blood goes into gills, and where it is getting oxygenated, and for this oxygenated blood, which is oxygenated blood, goes to all organs. This is called as systemic circuit. And you can say that here in this case this is branchial circuit. And from here now, when it goes to all the different organs, blood gives up oxygen. Hence, deoxygenated blood returns back to heart. Okay, that means we can say in the beginning that blood flows into heart only once per cycle. So in one cycle it is moving just once. This is what we already showed this diagram when we discussed closed circulation. But for double circulation, where we will get this? We get this in birds. You will get this in mammals. Of course, we get this in amphibians. But in amphibians, there are only 3 chambers. In birds and mammals, there are 4 chambers. Similarly, in reptiles, there are 3 chambers. So in this case, it's not very perfect. In this case, it is perfect. We know what this means. I am sure that you have learned this and you know what this means. It means that blood flows twice into heart. Same blood per cycle. This is blood flows twice into heart. in each cycle. That means let us say that these are the atria and these are the ventricles. Then we know that blood comes into the right atrium. From the right atrium it passes into the right ventricle. From the right ventricle it now goes into a system of capillaries in the lungs. So we will just show it like that. And now it comes into the left atrium, because when it goes to the lungs it capillarizes. So this is lungs, or it's called as a pulmonary circuit. Now it has lost its pressure, it has to come back to the left atrium. From the left atrium it goes into the left ventricle. Again the heart is pumping the same thing, and from here it is getting distributed to the entire body. So again we show a system of capillaries, and the blood is now returned back. So this is a diagram for closed also, but in closed it is double. You can show this with blue. Because the heart is now receiving blood which is deoxygenated. Okay. Another, from this ventricle, right ventricle, it is going towards the lungs. It is deoxygenated. From here it is getting oxygenated. From the lungs this blood is coming into the left atrium. From the left atrium it goes to the left ventricle, and from there it goes to different parts of the body, including the brain, the eyes, etc. All the parts, naturally all the parts of the body, and it will be oxygenated. So there are, blue is deoxygenated, red is oxygenated. So what you can see over here, that okay, that it is separated completely and it is going twice. However, in the case of amphibians and in reptiles, only one ventricle is there, so it is little less efficient. But both in birds and in mammals, this efficiency is very high. Highly efficient. However, what it means is that the heart has to continuously work. Heart is continuously working. That means there is more energy is required. And therefore they have to continuously eat food. For most of these animals, in fact all these animals are warm-blooded, or we use the term homeotherms. Whereas amphibians and reptiles are what we call as cold-blooded or poikilotherms. So as this is evolved into homeothermy, they are able to keep the body temperature constant by spending more energy. They have to continuously find methods of eating food, whether for a bird or for a mammal. Then this system becomes efficient. So you can see that as evolution has taken place, systems have become adapted to the kind of lifestyle that they are involved in. So this is the difference between single and double circulation. So with this is Professor Ravindranath signing off for this particular lecture. Thank you.